Welcome to Sudbury Sports Unbiased, your source for no-spin coverage on the Sudbury Wolves, Sudbury Five, Sudbury Cyclones, and Sudbury Cups with Rick and Craig. Hello, sports fans. Craig here, and we have Giuseppe Politi back with us this afternoon. Giuseppe, good to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, so today we're going to predict the 4 quarterfinal matchups at the 2026 World Cup, and we're going to talk a little bit of Canada soccer because Canada was eliminated on Saturday by Morocco, and we're going to get your opinion on a couple of topics that one of my subscribers has brought to my attention. And I said, what better person to have on than Giuseppe so he can at least share his opinions and insights. First of all, let's step back before we get into the quarterfinals. That was quite a round of 16, Giuseppe. I think you'd agree.
Fantastic for the neutral observer. Fantastic for someone that is just taking in soccer, maybe for the first time as something to watch on the regular. The drama, the excitement, the social media, the controversies. It's a great spectacle for the sport. I mean, I'm not a big fan of what happened with FIFA and the USA. I can't wrap my head around that. But overall, fantastic for the sport and lots of goals and should be setting the stage for a great quarterfinal.
A lot of action, and I agree with you with FIFA. Rick and I did quite a take on that on our Beyond the Sports headlines, but fortunately, we'll leave that behind, hopefully never to rear its ugly head again. So let's start with the first quarterfinal game, and that's tomorrow at 4 p.m. We have a game here that could be worthy of a World Cup final, France and Morocco. Who do you like in this game, Giuseppe?
I mean, again, I've used this approach. My heart is Morocco, but my brain is France. I don't think you can even compare them on paper. If France plays to its potential, and if coupled with what Morocco did in the first half against Canada, it might be an easy day for France. It really depends on which Morocco shows up. I'm a big fan. Italy's out, Canada's out. I want an underdog. I want someone that's not won it. It would be fantastic to see Morocco advance. But, if I'm betting money, the common sense, easy choice is to choose France. Everybody's healthy. Nobody's suspended. I don't think France has really been challenged. So to me, it's sort of like straightforward. Would I love to see an upset? Sure. Is it possible that something happens and all of a sudden France gets a red card and Morocco is up and, crazy things can happen. But beyond anything crazy happening, I think it's straightforward.
Do you think that France was challenged by Paraguay in any way?
I think Paraguay did what a common sense coach at the highest levels would do, and that's sit back, frustrate, try to provoke players, play mental games, all that sort of stuff. I mean, Paraguay had its World Cup. It knocked out Germany. They should be delighted with that. But France and Morocco is going to be a high-level match. I'm pretty sure Morocco is a top 10 team in the world, the semifinalists at the last World Cup. I wish they were on the other side. I wish, they didn't have, because I think France on paper is the most talented team in this tournament. And if they play to their potential, I don't see anybody stopping them.
Yeah, you raised an interesting point. You said that Morocco played poorly against Canada in the first half, and they did. Is there anything that a team that France would take from that? Would that help them with their game planning, or how do you think that France would handle the way Canada dealt with Morocco?
I don't know if it's anything exceptional. I just think that, I know we're going to talk about Canada later. It's just like that Canada, Morocco, it could have been Canada. I'm not going to say should have, but it could have. And I just think back to the Aloha, I think how to say his last name, his chance from about
Oluwaseun?
8. Yeah, like his
Oluwaseun.
chance. He turns that defender and scores that goal, and Canada's up 1-0. We have a much different soccer game. Everything changes after that. Anyway, I know we're going to talk Canada later. I think
Okay.
France, with the talent they have, and I don't think that they've been exerted. I think it's, probably a 2-0.
This is another colonial battle because, as you know, there's many Moroccans that have French heritage and so on, but I think France will win this game. It's not going to be an easy game. I'm going to say France 2 and Morocco 1. So I think that France will move on to the semifinals. Next game that we have is Friday at 3 p.m., and that's Spain and Belgium. Who do you like in that game, Giuseppe?
I think clearly Spain is the favorite. I think Belgium is going to, I hate to say it because, Connor band away. My cherished Cyclones goalie is Belgian, and obviously you want to cheer for who the guys are cheering for, but I don't see that they have much. I thought they got through the US easy because the US was so flat. It was ugly. And I still think Spain has just got quality all over the field, and their team play is exceptional. I'm not a, Lamine Yamal, great young player, but I don't think he's at the levels that some people are putting him at just yet. But as a collective, Spain is special. I don't even think they've conceded a goal to date. I think Spain is going to win this straightforward. Again, something like a 2-0, maybe even 3.
Yeah, I think that Belgium had a very emotional game against the US. I mean, if you can't get pumped up after what happened between Donald Trump and FIFA, you never will. And I think that Belgium is due for a come down. I don't think that Spain played as well as they could have in the last game. So I think that Spain will raise their level. I'm looking here, Giuseppe, perhaps a 3-1 game in favor of Spain.
Yeah, I would agree. I just think of Belgium. I mean, not the last game because they deserved to win. The US was poor and disappointing, in fact. But the previous game, Belgium was like down 2-0 with 5 minutes to go. Their bags were packed. The flight was ready to leave, and they roared back. I think it was against Senegal, right? They ended
Yes,
up,
that's correct.
then a last minute PK. It's just like those two highs. I think Belgium could be very much delighted with their performance. I mean, all the power to them. Go for it. I'd love to see an underdog. I just, if you're asking me who's going to win, Spain's the easy choice.
Then we have a couple of games on Saturday. And the first game, I keep saying it, Norway, they're going to scare some people. And now they're in the quarterfinals. Can they put a scare into England? Is there any hope that Norway could beat England in this game?
There sure is, for one reason. Erling Haaland. That player is so decisive. He is by far the game changer for Norway. He did it against Brazil. He can do it again. If he gets service and gets opportunities, he can score the goals. And honestly, the rest of the Norwegians will fight to defend and provide the service and do what's needed. I think it's going to be tough either way. Probably of the 3 games so far, the hardest one to call. I would love to see Norway. Norway had a to my chagrin, great qualification, knocked Italy out deservedly. Deservedly. Norway was better prepared, more lethal, scored goals, and I would love to see Norway do it. But again, England is a tough team. They've got Premier League players, they've got experience, they've been in late games, late in tournaments, in the World Cup and the Euros. So it's going to be tough. I'm going to say the Erling Haaland effect again and take Norway.
You know what? I think Norway to me is the Cinderella darlings. Nobody expected too much from them. And I would say this, I thought that they were dominant over Brazil. I thought that Brazil was definitely second best on the day. And forget about the 2 goals that Erling Haaland scored. Norway showed me a lot by being a very good Brazil team. Now, can they beat England? Yeah, I think they can. My thinking with England, they came off a really tough game with Mexico. And you kind of wonder, can those guys bring it up again? This is going to be a tight game. I think, I'd love to call the upset, but something tells me 2-1 England, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was 2-1 for Norway.
Yeah, I agree. It could go either way. Again, I would probably agree with you. Brain, England, heart, Norway.
That's right. And one more, Argentina and Switzerland. And that game again is on Saturday, the late game. Who do you like in that one, Giuseppe?
I think the easy choice is and I mean, maybe not overly easy, but the easy choice is Argentina again. I know the last couple of games, they've been kind of rattled a bit with lesser opponents. If there's ever an opportunity for Switzerland to make a semifinal, going up against Argentina, most people are going to write Switzerland off. I don't think anybody should for a couple of reasons. They've got basically all the pressures on Argentina. Switzerland has already overachieved, I think. I don't think that they're, full of stars or anything like that. You pull this to a shootout, you never know. Argentina has cracks. I really think Egypt could have done better, especially up 2-0 with 10 minutes to play. I realize all the referee stuff, but I think Egypt could have done better. Similar with Senegal. You can't be up 2 goals with 10 minutes to play and concede so much. But if you're asking me to pick right now, because I got a sign, I choose Argentina.
Well, I think Argentina will win this game, but I'll say this. Argentina hasn't looked very good in the last 2 games. They were fortunate to get by Cape Verde, and they were also very fortunate, in my view, to get by Egypt. Egypt was one refereeing decision away from sending Argentina back.
Yeah, like I said, it's That it's hard to say what was the game of the tournament because it seems like every second day there's one that could be a candidate. That Egypt Argentina was crazy. I really thought Egypt had maybe done enough. They kind of sat back, hit people on the counter as a team like that should. But then there's the Messi factor. There's the VAR. It's just like, are the soccer gods finally, is all their energy finally going to run out for Messi? We will see. But I still see Argentina getting to the semi.
Yeah, I think Argentina will win, but it also speaks to Switzerland because, everyone said, "Oh, Canada has a really easy group." Well, I think Switzerland is proving that that group was not as easy as many people predicted.
Yeah, and the way I look at it is, if that's Switzerland, it could have been Canada.
Yeah, I thought about that. That's a great point because, if we would have got a point in that final group game with Switzerland, we
hmm
would have been going down the Switzerland path.
Exactly. I don't think who did Switzerland? They had Colombia. I can't remember who they had before. Ghana, maybe. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Either way, every time I see Switzerland, there has to be a little bit of regret for Jesse and the Canadian group because they could have tied that Switzerland game. And anyway, what are you going to do? You can always look back in hindsight and say shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Well, you look through the Switzerland path, they had Algeria and they had
Yeah.
Colombia. I think that Canada would have matched up well against either of those teams.
Yeah, like if you're looking at the bracket, kind of like a top left, top right, bottom right, that bottom right bracket was clearly the easiest of the routes, in my opinion. Like whoever's coming out of there, Argentina, you draw it out, it is a clear path to the final based on world rankings and history and players and so on and so forth. So Switzerland is taking advantage and to their merit making the most of the opportunity. But at the end of the day, I still think FIFA and Messi are going to be in the semis together.
You said a mouthful there, Giuseppe.
Yeah.
FIFA and Messi. Yesterday I was watching the game and I said to myself, I think FIFA really wants Argentina to go through to the next round. And I'm not saying that the games are cooked. That's not what I'm trying to imply. But I'll tell you, there's been a couple of times where I'm thinking the FIFA gods are into this.
Yeah.
And that's not misrespecting Messi. There's just been some pretty unusual decisions.
Yeah, it's a lot to talk about. I feel so bad, I guess, for the Egypt goal that was ruled out because of the foul that happened 90 yards away. And it was kind of like it was a foul to the letter of the law, but very frustrating. But that's the game. To be honest, all that people talk about the fix is in and all that, I don't buy it. FIFA is soccer and FIFA, I think, is free from that sort of stuff. The only thing I really think FIFA really mishandled was the U.S. stuff with Balogun. In my opinion, if they really thought that the referee made a mistake, just downgrade his foul to a yellow and move on. But to say that it's still a red and he's going to serve it at some point in the future makes no sense. Like, for example, I'm talking to people, we're always talking about World Cup. What's going to happen to the England right back? Is he eligible to play in the quarterfinal? Because I haven't heard a word yet. Is King Charles going to call Gianni Infantino? I don't know what's going to happen with that.
In fact, there was a motion yesterday or the day before in the British Parliament. Hey, we should be appealing this red card. And the logic is if Donald Trump can do it, why can't we?
Yeah, it's a stain on the whole thing. I thought the event's been great to date. I'm not a fan of what I saw, with the US. He should have either been downgraded to a yellow, where FIFA says, look, the referees made a mistake after review, or just sit him out, period. In the end, maybe the soccer gods and quote unquote karma got the US.
Yeah, I think karma was a factor here. We don't like to talk about karma in sports, but in that game, I really felt it was present. Let's move on to maybe a more pleasant topic. Canada, as you know, is out. They lost to Morocco in the round of 16. And I did a show and basically went through stock up, stock down for the team. And for my viewers, if you want to watch that, it's in the YouTube. So if you're inclined, by all means, please go there. I thought it was fair. I tried to be reasonable in my evaluation of the Canadian players. But let's talk about Canada generally, Giuseppe. There's been this perception, Canada, and the question's been asked, did Canada meet expectations at the World Cup? Did they fall short of expectations or did they exceed expectations? What would you say about that?
First of all, I would say to assess that, you need to know what the expectation is. So to whether you did not meet it, met it, or went above, well, you have to come to an agreement on what the expectation is. So given the group that they were drawn into, I think the minimum expectation was that they were to advance. That was before we knew who the opponent was in the round of 32. Then we found out which they met. They met the expectation deservedly. And they qualified as second and crossed over with South Africa. Once you find out who your opponent is, then you kind of have to evolve or update the expectations. They met expectations by beating South Africa. So overall, to give your view and answer, I would say Canada did not underperform at this World Cup, but they did not overperform. They met expectations that were kind of like from beginning of the tournament and then ongoing. Once they met Morocco, beating Morocco, I think would be above expectations. The regret that I think Jesse has and his team has to live with is that they could have done better. I don't think 3-0 is a fair scoreline. It was the typical, you're down 1-0, you gotta if you lose, you're out. You got to throw people forward, and Morocco scored on a couple counterattacks. If you understand soccer and coaching, 3-0 was not a fair scoreline. A fair scoreline would have been 1-0 Morocco. You move on, period. Canada's missed chances and how good their first half was just leaves a lot to be like, what if Canada would have succeeded, right? They fell asleep on that set piece within, I don't even know how many minutes of the second half. You can't concede there on that
Yeah, the
corner.
first 5 minutes.
Yeah. And, we have a saying in coaching and stuff like the first 5 minutes of each half, the last 5 minutes of each half, and the 5 minutes after a goal. Those are like very critical, delicate psychological moments where you do not want to concede. You want to keep things simple, et cetera, et cetera. And they conceded. And after that, I found that, it was a little bit of panic and chasing the game. And then obviously you had no choice. Just, the team had to go for it. So long story short, Canada met expectations, but there's still given that Morocco, when people ask, what was your predictions? And I said, well, Canada's going to have a good day and Morocco's going to have an off day. And they did have an off day. So Canada did not kind of like seize the moment.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The game was there for the taking as far as I was concerned. I thought that Canada, if they would have cashed a couple of the chances they had in the first half, it would have been a totally different game. And I think that Canada, my thought was, and this is just my opinion, I think they exceeded expectations. And the reason I say they exceeded expectations is they played the world number 6, Morocco, extremely competitively. Yes, they lost, but I think the way they played really heartened me for this team. That tells me that they can truly compete with the very best teams. And because they competed with the best teams in the round of 16, that's why my opinion was, Giuseppe, that I felt that Canada exceeded the expectations. Yeah. So let's talk about Jesse Marsch, because Jesse Marsch has received some criticism in some areas. He's got some people that really love him, and he's got a lot of critics, and that's like any other coach. I get that. But here's the question I ask. Jesse Marsch plays a high press, and he has his guys running all over the place, trying to create turnovers, trying to create havoc. And the question I have for you is this. Is this high pressing style that Jesse Marsch employs, is it a system that can work to win tournaments and to move the program further as far as advancing further in the World Cup?
I think so. I mean, I think there's a lot to that. I think that, the first half against Morocco was excellent by Canada. I thought they pressed well. I also thought that, a player like Nick Segur came in and did very well. When I saw him in the starting lineup, I had some doubts, but I thought he did very well. Remember, Canada did not have two of their best players due to injury. The whole Alphonso Davies thing, he wasn't ready, and glad they didn't put him in so he didn't re-injure himself. And then you have Ishmael Kone breaking his leg. I think, vote of confidence. We got to let Jesse continue to do his thing. I know that he's already extended for 4 years, but the next real project is Copa America. Can Canada make waves in a couple years' time at Copa America? And then after that, the second half of his 4-year deal is get the team qualified for Morocco, Spain, and Portugal, and then see what happens. At the end of the day with Canada and Jesse is if someone would have said Canada is going to finish in the round of 16 before the tournament, I think we all would have taken that.
Absolutely.
So overall, I'm going to give Jesse a very good grade. I don't know if it's an A. It's not an A plus, and maybe not an A, maybe an A minus. But he deserves credit for what he's done, how he's transformed the team, the style he's employed. He was short a little bit of resources or assets, given a couple of his best players weren't there. It's our hope that that this core can continue on. I think I don't know everybody's age, but like the Osorio guy from TFC, I mean, he's 34. He won't be around for the next 4-year cycle and stuff like that. But overall, it's a young, exciting team. And I hope that this is just a stepping stone for that team and for the growth of the sport.
When I did my stock up and stock down, one of the points that I made was for many of the players in 2030, they'll be at their peak. So
Yeah,
guys like Alfonso Davies, Jonathan David, Kone, they'll be at their peak. They'll be well seasoned, well experienced, and probably playing well in top 5 leagues.
Yeah, I think that's so important. It's important that our Canadian players, the ones that are going to represent Canada on the international stage, that they are playing in the best leagues possible. And, you know, now is going to be trying to backfill a little bit more talent. But overall, I think it was a success for Canada. We're always going to think what could have been. And let's be honest, let's say they do win. I can't see them going any further because they were drawn into France, right? The left side of the bracket is so much more difficult than the right.
Yeah, they weren't going anywhere with France. I mean, let's be
Exactly. Yeah, you
real.
know, exactly. And I think it's important to be realistic. Like one more round would have been the most Canada would have got. I think France would have kind of handled them quite well. But either way, it was exciting and good job, Jesse Marsch.
Yeah. So the question I have for you is this. When I watch Canada play, we usually have really good first halves. And then in the second half, as people get more fatigued, our work rate seems to drop. And that's my concern I have with the high press system. How do you go about combating that?
Well, I think you have a couple options. Number one, the high press can certainly take fatigue on players. So if you're going to do the high press the whole first half, you better be ready to substitute players in the second half, or you're going to have to kind of not press the entire time. We talked about this, I think, last time on the podcast that you can do things in waves. There's nothing saying, "Oh, we're going to go high press. We got to do it from minute 0 to minute 45." I mean, you might do it for the first 15, then you might slow things down, go into a mid block, and then finish the half off again. It depends on a whole bunch of factors, I mean, fitness, weather, the opponent, et cetera. Um, that's going to be Jesse's challenge to decide and pick his moments. Yeah, you can work on fitness and all that stuff for each player, but to run around the park for 90 minutes, it takes a lot. I can't say that there's one specific answer. It's probably a mix of all those, a mix of fitness of players, a mix of substituting players, a mix of picking different moments on when to press. Because, like you're right, in the second half, people get tired. That's when mistakes happen, breakdowns. And unfortunately for Canada, think about that. The press, I can't remember totally the play that led to, I think what's the center back's name that caused the foul? De Fougerolis, right?
De Fougerow, yeah, Luke De
Yeah.
Fougerow.
So basically the ball had gone down the wing and then he kind of prematurely, maybe a little bit of being naive because he's just a young man, took out the guy quite easily. And I didn't think he needed to do that. And then sure enough, they scored by playing a short, wide free kick instead of the traditional whipping it in for a header. They played it to the top of the box and Canada was caught sleeping. But I don't know if that was necessarily because we were high pressing and they broke the press. I'd have to go look at it again. But anyway, I think Jesse has given this team an identity. I think the players have bought in to what he's selling, and that's so important, right? It's not easy all the time to manage 20, 25 men and have them buy into your system. So again, good job, Jesse, and let's hope this is just a starting point for Copa America.
Yeah, well, here's what I'll say. And I think I want to end this on a really positive note. If you're a dual national and you have Canadian heritage, you have to believe that there's going to be a lot more players that haven't yet declared that will be interested in playing for this program. And I think that augurs nothing but well for the future. Don't you agree?
I think that's a great point. I haven't really thought about that, to be honest. And I will just piggyback with that very interesting point was, I don't know which game it was, but it was Morocco was playing. And I think the announcer said that every single person on the Morocco starting lineup, don't quote me which game, but it happened at this World Cup. The announcer said every single player was not born in Morocco.
That's
And that
correct.
is Yeah, and it's kind of crazy, but these are the rules. You're allowed to declare whatever. Look at the goalie. The goalie from Morocco was born in Montreal. And let's
Correct.
hope in the future that someone like that has a potential in soccer, will not just default to going to the what they think is the better chance of getting to the World Cup. Because now that they can see that Canada has a future, a bright one, that can compete on the world stage, I think it's a great point. So let's hope you're right.
Yeah, I think it will be very good. I think there will be people that will say, hey, there's room for me in the program. And the other thing that I'm going to say, which is something that we don't talk enough about, and you're part of the system. The Cyclones, people don't realize this. They're part of the Canadian soccer ecosystem. I think in 4 years, you're going to have a number of players that are going to go through OPL 1 and they're going to go through the CPL. And they're going to be people that are going to challenge for opportunities with the national team, Giuseppe.
Yeah, and it might be in a way that is kind of like, let's call it indirect. So I could see someone, ex-player, being young, let's say 19, 20, and playing in OPL 1, all of a sudden does well, good video, signs CPL, he's 22, then in CPL gets picked up with the video, with the use of agents. All of a sudden they're playing in a European league, something at 23, 24, and then all of a sudden they're on the radar for the national team. So in that way, what I just described, you're right. I mean, OPL can be part of this whole ecosystem that leads to the betterment of producing players for our national team.
And the other thing that people didn't talk enough about, in my opinion, is that we're now going to have a national training center. That's got to help the growth of soccer in the country.
100%. I mean, the big thing about Canada is the size. The size and the geographic scope of Canada is very challenging. So size is an issue. Also money. I don't know if we can get into the financials. I don't have all the numbers, but I cannot say that CSA is the richest organization. I don't know how much Jesse Marsch is getting paid. He pretty much said that he lives in Italy or resides there. So I'm thinking this is, he flies in, does his thing, flies back. But yeah, a national training center will help. There's a lot of variables that are going to move this game forward in our country, from infrastructure to culture, so on and so forth. But it's doable. This is doable, and I'm hoping people, can see that Canada can produce a good product. I'm kind of sad that the U.S. and Mexico went out. The U.S., a lot of people wanted them out for political reasons and all that, but I really wanted the host to go far to show that our, how would you call it, jurisdiction under FIFA, the CONCACAF region, can produce quality. So up to the round of 16, hopefully next time we can get to the quarters.
Yeah, that would be a big step for the Confederation as a whole.
Right.
Before we let you go, I know that I wanted to talk a little bit of Sudbury Cyclones with you. And this week you've got Scropazzi as your opponent, a team at the top of the table. How do you plan to approach Scropazzi this week?
Well, it's a mix of, um, playing our own game and being mindful of, we'll make some adjustments for their system. We'll look at video of when we played them last time. We lost 2-1 on the road a lot earlier in the season. It was actually in April. So that's been a while. They are a team that always contends for the title on an annual basis. They're not in first right now, but the game does mean a lot to them. So they're looking to come here and get their 3 points as they try to continue their ride to hopefully another title. And we're going to try to put up our best fight. We have I know we're not necessarily winning games, but we have a good track record at home of making Sudbury a very difficult place to play. And we have been in every single home game here in Sudbury, within ties, wins, losses, whatever. So we're going to do our best to put our best product on the field. We got to practice tonight and tomorrow, some video and a meal on Friday, and Saturday we're going to be ready to compete.
And let's hope for everyone's sake, including yours, I'll be watching on Saturday. Let's get a few more people out. Last week's crowd I thought was a little scant, and I was disappointed by that. So anybody who's listening, who's a subscriber or is going to check out this video, hey, go out and support good Canadian soccer. All the Canadian men's national team players made a point of saying, go and support your local club. And guess what? The Sudbury Cyclones, they're our local club, the men's team and the women's team. Get out and support them. This is good quality soccer. You've got good quality individuals running the show, and Giuseppe and Evan, you guys are doing a great job. So I want people to get behind you.
I appreciate it. We really want to see bigger crowds. I know last week, not the usual support, and we could take that 12th man.
Absolutely. 12th man is always required. So, Giuseppe, I want to thank you today for stepping in and talking to us. It's always a pleasure. And after the quarterfinals, we'll have the semifinals next week. So, I'm thinking like maybe next Monday, if you're around, we could talk a little semifinal World Cup as the tournament is drawing rapidly to a conclusion.
Yeah, sure. It's going to be an exciting round these quarters, and I hope this beautiful spectacle for the sport continues for the remaining whatever 10 days we got, 10 or 12 days till we get to see who's going to lift this trophy.
Well, I just think it'll be great soccer. We have a lot of really great matchups. I listened to one of the podcasts said we have 4 games in this round that could all be World Cup finals. And that's really not very far from the truth.
Yeah, no, there's some great matchups coming up, and I know that we're in store for some great drama.
You got it. And good luck to the Cyclones this weekend. I'll be watching, and I'd like to see a W this week.
Thanks as always, Craig.
All right. Always a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon, Giuseppe.
You got it.
Bye for now.